Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Manisha Gupta and I am Assistant Professor in Noida Institute of Engineering Technology in MBA department, and I welcome you in your business research method class. And we are talking about the sampling, and in today's section we are going to discuss about the sampling frame, sampling error, non-sampling error, method to reduce the error and no response. But before understanding the sampling frame, it is important to understand what is the sampling unit. So, basically the sampling unit is the element or the set of the element that is available for the section in the some stage of the sampling process. So, these are the basically the basic unit of our sample. The sampling unit is a one of the constitute of the select for the purpose of sampling, and the each unit being regarded as an individual or indivisible when selection is made. Basically, it is regarded as a individual and the individual when the selection is made. Means if we talk about the customer satisfaction study, the every single customer is your sampling unit. So, basically the sampling unit is one of the basic unit of your whole sample, and the sampling unit is one of the unit into which they aggregate or divide of the purpose of the sampling. Means because of the sampling unit you aggregate and divide the purpose for the sampling, and the each unit being regarded as an individual and indivisible, individual and the indivisible when the selection is made. The unit, what should be the basic unit? The unit may be the person, element, plant, things which is actually studied by the researcher, and the basic object upon which the study or experiment is executed. If suppose we talk about the employee satisfaction survey, so in employee satisfaction survey the every single employee is your sampling unit. In the customer satisfaction survey the every single customer will be your sampling unit. Then the sampling unit is a single member of the sample, means they are just a single member of this sample, they are not the group member, they are just a single member. And who are those? The individual who are in contact with the sampling unit. If the retailer to be the conducted in the locally, they are assumed as a sampling unit. Suppose you want to conduct the study on the retailer or wholesaler, you want to know what is their basic strategy and how they are satisfied with their vendors. So, your retailers, your wholesaler provider will be your sampling unit. The sampling unit may be the geographical one also. You can also say the geographical area will also be the sampling unit, such as your state, district, village, etc. And the construction unit such as the house, flats will be also your sampling unit. If there is a certain survey you want to understand the quality of the in your retail industries, like your I am talking about the retail industry or hospitality or hospital industry. So, you can go and visit the hospital, their infrastructure. So, that hospital will become your one sample unit, because you want to understand about the what are the infrastructure of the hospitals. So, these are the few example of your sampling. And in the if you talk about the social unit in the sampling, then the social unit may be your, because when you talk about the sampling will be also as your family, club and school. If you want to know about the what are the schools are doing, that means how, take an example, that is the sports preference in a school, how the sports are getting the importance in a school. So, you want to conduct this survey throughout the area in the city or in a state. So, there the one single school is become your sample unit, and it may be the individual, the researcher will have to decide one or more of the such unit, and he has to select for his study. Then we talk about the sampling frame. So, basically we understand the sampling unit. Sampling unit is basically one single individual depend upon the change from the type of the study, it may be the one single customer also, one single organization also, schools also, clubs also, or even cities also. So, these will be your sampling unit. Then what is a sampling frame? The elementary unit or the group or the cluster of the such unit may form the basis of your sampling. Means elementary unit, we have seen the what is a sample unit. So, the elementary unit or the group or the cluster of these type of the unit may form the basis of our sampling process, and in which the cases may be called as a sampling unit. We get to know what is a sampling unit. So, these are the basically elementary unit, it may be the group, cluster. So, depend upon the type of the study, we select our sampling unit. Now, the list containing all such a sampling unit is known as a sampling frame. Suppose there is a 10,000 school in a state, and you want to understand that how these schools are focusing on a sports. So, those 10,000 unit means one single unit is school. So, all those 10,000 unit may become your sampling frame on the basis of the our desired criteria of the population. And the sampling frame basically consists of the list of the item from which the sample is to be drawn. So, they are basically consist of list of the item. List of the item is the list of the characteristics. If you want to understand that the schools are focusing on the sports or not. So, one of the most criteria is that is the school have the playground. If the school having the big playground, then only they can support to the sports activity. If they don't have a playground, then they can only possible to support the indoor games, but not the outdoor games. But if you are focusing only on the outdoor games, then those schools who don't have the playground, that will be not in our criteria. So, those type of the school will not be in your sampling frame, only those type of the school who have the playground. So, playground will be means as a list of the item or the characteristics on which we try to focus. If the population is a finite and the time frame is in the present or a past, then it is possible that the frame can be identical with the population. Means if we talk about, we have the finite population, we have seen the finite and infinite universe. So, in the case of the finite universe, then your sampling frame and the population can be the identical, but sampling frame get more important if you have the infinite population. In the most of the cases, they are not identical because of it impossible to draw the sample directly from the population. That is why they prepare the sampling frame. So, in the sampling frame has the set of the criteria, like I have taken an example of the schools focusing on the sports. So, whatever the school we have selected, first criteria should be the school who have playgrounds. So, these type of the characteristics, on the basis of these type of the characteristics, you prepare a sampling frame, and from that sampling frame we are going to select our sample. Then in the sampling frame, and in this sampling frame is either constructed by the research for the purpose of his study, or may consist of some existing list of the population. It may be possible that researcher may draw himself the sampling frame, or he can also take the reference of the previously drawn sampling frame on the basis of the previously done research. For instance, one can use the telephone directory as a frame for conducting the opinion survey. Like suppose you want to know the person who is in our country at the time of the election. Suppose one person is coming for your MP seat. So, you can conduct a sampling frame by the basis of the telephone directory. You can call it and get to know that who would you like to support. And in present time, how the people get to know that? By using the social media website like your Twitter handles and Facebook. You will get the feedback from that and get to know that what are the city. So, in present time you can say that you want to make the sampling frame, you want to collect the data, people who are using the social media website. So people who are using the social media website can become your sampling frame to get to know your sample. Then whether the frame may be or should be good representative of a population, like the person who is going to vote, suppose youngster use more social networking site, but the people who is going to vote, they may have be 85 year of the age, 89 year of the age, 60 year of the age, and also the 20 year of the age also. So whatever the sampling frame we are using, it should be according to the, it should represent the sample. And the list of the all sampling unit with the proper identification which represent the population to be covered, and it is basically called your sampling frame. And the sampling frame consists of the either the list of the unit or the map of the area. In case of the sample is it sampling, in case of the sample area is being taken, suppose if you are focusing, like we are conducting, take an example, like if we want to conduct the study on the customer satisfaction of a Vivo mobile phones. So if you focus on the only particular type of area, like if you are focusing on the any particular state, then that will be the area. So it will be possible that it should be defined in terms of the area also, and such that every element of the population belong to one and only one unit. The frame, what should the characteristics of the frame? The characteristics of the frame should be, it should be accurate. Accurate means it should be the ideal characteristics of the population and free from the omission, and we should avoid the duplication or the overlapping of the samples. Then it should be adequate, means you can conduct the study and they will get the better result, and up to the data and unit must cover the whole of the population and should be well defined, means your sampling frame must cover the whole population. Like if you want to know the opinion of the people, then you just not only focus on the people who are using the Twitter, because still the older age people did not use Twitter handle or the social media website. So you should opt for the such type of the research where you get the ideal data, means you can touch the every single part of your population. And in improving the sample design, the supplementary information from the field covered by the sampling frame may also be valuable. So these are the basically the points of your sampling frame. Then what should be the qualities or the characteristics of your good sampling frame? So the qualities and the characteristics of the good sampling frame is that the all sampling unit have the logical and a numerical identifier, means whatever the sampling unit we have taken, it should be logical and you can numerically identify it. Second thing is the all the sampling unit can be found, means you can contact your sample. If the people living in a very remote area, like someone is living in the very hilly area where there is a very slow and the transportation is not easy, then they should be not be your ideal population, because you cannot easily contact to them. So your units should be found, you can easily contact to them. Then the frame is organized in a logical and a systematic manner. Whatever the frame we form should be logical. If you conduct the study on the basis of the age, then you should derive the sample part or the appropriate portion from the every single age group. Then sampling frame has some additional and information about the unit that allow to use more advanced sampling, means because the sampling frame provide you some additional information, so you can use a more advanced sampling frame also. Every element of the population of the interest is present in a frame. Suppose we talk about the customer, so in your sampling frame the every single type of the customer should be taken. If you talk about the laptops, that and you want to understand the customer satisfaction about the people who are using the Dell laptops. So they may be the different bifurcation, there may be the many segment, like if the people who are working in the IT industry, they may use the different configuration of the laptop. The people who are using the who are in the entertainment industry, they may have the different requirement, so their configuration of the laptop should be different. The students, their their needs should be different, and normal people who are using the laptops for their basic works, so their laptop configuration should be different. So there is a different set of the customer for that particular brand. So you should choose the sampling frame such that it will touch the all segment of your customers if you are conducting any customer survey. Then every element of the population is present only once in a frame. There should be no repetition or the duplicacy of your sampling unit, and the no element from the outside population of the interest are the presented in a frame. Means no outside population, means if they are the not customer of the Dell, then they should not be added in your sampling frame. Then in the sampling frame, they may have the certain defects. First defect is the frame may be inaccurate, where the sum of the sampling unit of the population are listed are inaccurate. Suppose you are selected as some inaccurate sampling unit from the population, then your sampling frame will be inaccurate. They did not give you the desired result. And some unit which is not actually existed are included in the list. Suppose you are taking the list which is not exactly existed. Suppose you were conducting a study on a particular segment of the brand which is no longer existed, then that is a faulty sampling unit which you have chosen. Then frame may be inadequate when it does not include the all class of the population. If you are conducting the customer survey research, then you have to select the all the segment of the customer, but suppose there is a 10 segment of the customer and you have taken only the 7 or 8 segment of the customer in your sampling frame, then it is inadequate because it does not represent the it does not have the characteristics of a whole population. Then frame may be incomplete when the sum of the sampling unit of the population are either completely omitted or included more than enough ones. Suppose if the sampling unit of the population are completely omitted, or they may not present, or they may added more than once, so it is an example of incomplete frame. Then frame may be the out of the date, if because we have seen the mobile phones, they are the very frequently changing. You cannot buy the brand which is present in the 2014 and 15. You don't buy those brand at present time. So if you collect the data of the customer who are using those brand, they should be not be the ideal customer for you, because those brands are the already stopped working in India. Now the company is not launching those brand. So if the customer using those brand, then they are out of dated. We don't need such type of data. Then there is a few terms related to the population and your sample, which is called a statistics and parameter. They basically used in reference of your population and your sample. So statics characteristics of the sample, where the parameter represent the characteristics of the population. The character, if you talk about the characteristics of the sample, then it is called as a statistic. When we talk about the sample, the characteristic of the sample is called a statistic. But when we talk about the population, then the characteristics of the population is represented as a parameter. Then thus we work out the certain measures such as mean, median, mode, or like one of the sample. Means if you are taking the mean and median and mode, you are saying that the customer are happy, then it is the example of your, because it is showing the characteristics of your sample, it is a statistics. But when such measure describe the characteristics of the population, then they are known as parameter. The very simple difference, when you talk about the sample, the characteristics of the sample is your statistics, but when we talk about the population, the characteristics of the population is your parameter. Error in the sampling. So, it may be the possible that the sample which we have collected, it may have a certain error. So, the sample expected to represent the population from which it comes. However, there is no guarantee that any sample will be precisely representative of a population from which it comes, and in practice it is rarely known as a sample unrepresented and should be discarded. So, whatever the sampling error may happen, like the population which we have chosen, it may don't have the characteristics of the population, or there is no representation of the population. So, these type of the error happen in our sample. Basically, there are the two types of the error in the sample survey. First is your sampling error. So, what is basically the sampling error? The sampling error comprise the difference between the sample and a population, means the sample which we have chosen is not ideal to the population, means they are does not have the all the characteristics of the population. For example, suppose the sample of the 100 female, you are conducting a certain type of the study on the clothing brand, and you collect the data from the 100 female and taken all the form who are the taller than the 6 feet, because if we talk in India, the female height of the 6 feet is a very uncommon. We did not see in the female who have the height of 6 or more than 6 feet is very common. So, if you collected the sample which is not very ideal for the population, then it is an example of your that they are not the truly represented. If I talk about the clothing brand, so people mostly focused on the normal and average height of the women, but this is the above average height. So, it is not the classic representation of your sample. So, if your sample is not truly representing your population, it is your sampling error. And these are the example, and there is also some other example, like the sampling biasness is the tendency to favor the section or the unit that have a particular characteristic. Suppose if in a sampling you are favoring certain type of the people, or you are collecting the data from the particular segment of the population, this is a show the biasness of the research, which is also the example of your sampling error, if there is a biasness in the collecting the data. Another, if we talk about the sampling error, if you take the unusual unit of the population which do exist, and it is always possible that can be abnormal, like we have taken example of the, you are collecting the data about the clothing brand of a person who have the height of the more than 6 feet, then it is a unusual unit. The sampling biasness, then most noted biasness is the non-representative, when the some reason or the some unit have no chance of the appearing in a sample, because if this some particular type of the segment is not represented, then that is also your sampling error. Then there is another type which is a non-sampling error. This type of the error happen in the sample. And what type of the basically non-sampling error? Non-sampling error occur when the sensor sample is being used, means when this sensor or the sample is being used, and the non-sampling error is the error that results solely from the manner in which the observation is made. These type of the error happen, it will be because of the how the people has observed, because there is a mistake in the observation, then these type of the error is happening. That is why it is called as a non-sampling error, because these type of the error does not happen because of the sample. These type of the error happen because of the certain type of the, if suppose the researcher is not collecting the data properly, or you can see that they are collecting the inaccurate data, or they are using the inaccurate measurement technique. Suppose your data is kind of nominal data, but you are collecting the data as a interval data or the ratio data. So these type of the basically the errors happen, and these type of the error is called as your non-sampling error. Then how will you minimize the sampling error? For minimize the sampling error, what we can do, you can increase the sample size, because when we collect the large sample, then the some type of the errors will be minimized, and when we choose the large sample, it should be closer to the accurate population. Second is divide the population in a group. You should divide the population, because most of the time your population is a heterogeneous in nature. So you divide the population depends upon the characteristics to make the homogeneous segment or frame. Second, you should understand your population. What is the characteristics of the population? If you understand the characteristics of the population, you may reduce the non-sampling error. For minimizing the non-sampling error, what we should need to do, we should randomize the selection to eliminate biases. If there is an error due to the biases, then you can use the randomized selection of the sample. Then train your team, because if the people are using the wrong measurement tool, like they instead of the using nominal tool, they are using the interval scale. So it means that the researcher does not have the basic knowledge. So you train your team and perform an excellent record and check. Means perform an external record check. Hire the people to check the efficiency of your workforce. And in the last, we talk about the non-response. The basically what is the non-response? Non-response is basically failure to obtain information from number of the subject, including in a sample. If you try to collect the data in the sample and the people are not responding, means there is a no response error. You have a given the set of the questionnaire, and it may contain the 25 questions, but the people have filled only 20 questions. So you did not get the answer of the 5 questions. The people did not have responded. They have not given you the information. So these are the non-response error. And non-response error exists to extent that those who did respond to your service are the different from those who did not, or one of the characteristics of the interest of your study. Either they are not respond at all, or they did not respond to the few of the items of your questions. And two important sources of the non-response are not at home or a refusal, means they are not present at the time of the data collection, or they refuse to answer. And an effective way of reduce the incident is not at a harm is to call back another time and get the preferably the data at the time of the day. If this either sample is not present, then you should contact to them and get the proper information again and collect the data again. And in the last, the rate of the refusal, and if your respondent is refusing, then what should we do? Among the other thing, or the one length of the survey and the data collection method and the pedagogy of the research. If your respondent is not responding, then what we can do? We should get to or try to convince him to respond, or we should change the pattern of the asking the questions. So these were the basically your non-response type of the error. So this is all for everyone. Thank you for the day.